With such strong numbers for the president's economy, what could the Dems possibly run on in the midterms? What would it be? Joining us tonight, Congressman Matt Gaetz, member of the House Judiciary Committee, the Freedom Caucus. Congressman, great to have you with us. I mean, we look at this economy that I just reported on and have been reporting on for all of these months since the president was elected. I don't understand what the Democrats have to say about the president's leadership and the Republican governorship of both the House and the Senate.
Well, you know, the Democrats keep trying to make the argument that Donald Trump is incompetent, but we continue to see the fruits of his labor and the work of his administration in coordination with the Republican Congress. If Democrats were to win in the midterms, we would face total chaos, Lou. Nothing would get done. No budgets would be passed. All of the special interests would continue to love the gridlock. Immigration would continue to be a problem as illegals just came across our border with no consequence. Do we really want that? Do we want endless impeachment hearings? I think the American people want to continue the progress, but here's the problem for Republicans. We've got to make new promises. We can't just expect people to get up and vote for us based on what we've done in the past. We've got to promise to fulfill this Trump agenda. Yeah,
and you know, you've got a guy in the House. We've mentioned Speaker Ryan before, haven't we? I mean, we have had that discussion.
I think you've brought him up a time or two on your show.
Well, and here we go again. And the president today brought up that leadership, feckless leadership in the House. And I'm just confused about why you all have continued to permit him to sit in the office that he resigned. He's doing no one any good. He's blocking the president's wall, as the president pointed out today, one of the cornerstone promises of his presidential campaign. What are the Republicans to do?
Well, we are in need of vision, and my colleague Jim Jordan laid out that vision several months ago. He said that with this deadline looming, we should put the wall funding together with prioritizing our troops and our veterans. We should send that over to the Senate and then demand that they take action on it. Here, what we have is, I think, the absence of decision-making, and, you know, my hope is that we continue to make our troops a priority. I mean, I hate when gridlock in Washington results in the people who are downrange fighting for our freedoms not getting what they need, and Trump has always put our troops and our veterans first, and at least we're taking care of that, but I don't think we've been nearly ambitious enough.
Yeah. Without the president's leadership, the Republicans would have precious little to show for their control of both the House and the Senate. I want to turn to what we're now witnessing, and that is the Congress of the United States sending a letter. I should point out the Dems who lead the Congress of the United States, Pelosi, Schumer, Warner, and a fellow by the name of Schiff, wanting well, let's just put this up because it's really remarkable. If we could put up the first full screen here of the DNI and the DOJ agreeing to block White House access. On June 27, 2018, we wrote to memorialize the verbal assurance that is, Coates and Rosenstein, it's just, and Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, the assurance you provided us that DOJ and FBI would not provide the White House or any of the president's attorneys with access to sensitive information briefed to a small group of designated members. Congressman, I've got to ask you, that looks to me like a confession on paper, overwhelming evidence of a conspiracy to subvert the President of the United States.
I don't know who the hell these people think they are telling executive agencies of the federal government not to be responsive to the commander-in-chief, to the person who leads the executive branch, to the President of the United States. Donald Trump has obligations under the Constitution that can only be met if he has full command and control of the federal government, and I think it's outrageous that you would have that happen. I think it's even more troubling now that you could have people at the FBI and Department of Justice not complying with the president's order to release the information that we've been demanding to have released so that we can get to the bottom of the Obama administration's abuses of the FISA process to spy on the Trump campaign.
Isn't it remarkable the president has ordered the declassification of the documents that you and other congressmen and two committees have sought? And now the Democrats are saying, my gosh, what an abuse of power. How could you possibly allow the President of the United States to declassify all of these documents, notwithstanding the fact that President Obama did precisely the same thing, that is, declassify material that had been classified, and did so to the cheers of the very same people, including, what's his name, Schiff, who is now protesting so loudly. This is, the Dems have reached I think, an absolutely unprecedented low-life level of political chicanery and dirty tricks that they ought to get down and prostrate themselves and apologize to the American people.
Well, let's hope that they don't have allies and co-conspirators at the Department of Justice at the FBI. Let's hope that people understand the org chart, and they understand that at the top of the org chart is President Donald J. Trump, and he makes these decisions. And by the way, he's right to make this decision, Lou, because we've got to know what information was withheld from the FISA court. We're going to find out a lot of stuff that they were supposed to be told. They never got told, and laws were probably broken.
Yeah, and I think we can all safely say, based on what we already know before even looking at the declassified material, that there is a level of rancid, desperate, toxic political corruption at the leadership level of both the FBI and the Department of Justice and the intelligence community under President Obama. Now it's just a question of producing the evidence, which the president, thank God, has started the process. Congressman, great to have you with us as always. Appreciate it.
Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz, a member of the House Judiciary Committee who has been a very vocal advocate for declassification of these documents. Great to see you, Congressman. Do you think these documents would have a perceived negative impact or a perception, I guess, of the Robert Mueller investigation, as has been said and the president has talked about?
I haven't seen the documents, but I do know that they will likely reveal what was hidden from the FISA court. And to Devin Nunes's point, if you had an FBI and a Department of Justice that was purposefully trying to make sure that a secret court didn't see information that was embarrassing to Brennan or Comey or McCabe or Rosenstein, then that's deeply troubling. And I think it goes to how motivated some of these people were to undermine Donald Trump both before and after his election. So I think Gowdy's also right. It might not be precisely in the words that are released, but perhaps in the omissions that we learn the most.
You know, it's interesting to see the president's tweet and Jillian Turner's reporting, and that's what I was referring to. I mean, he's explaining this delay. Do you believe that the delay, though, will get us from seeing these documents, and why can't we see them all?
Well, I think we can and will see the relevant portions. And if Trey Gowdy says that there's not a sources and methods problem, you know, as a former prosecutor, I really think he has a great deal of credibility in making that claim, and I would support him. I have also a lot of confidence in the Inspector General, and I'm glad Michael Horowitz is involved. Harris, you'll recall the Inspector General with a great deal of candor about the real departures from procedure in the Hillary and Clinton email investigation, and to really begin the Robert Mueller investigation. The Inspector General said he could not rule out bias. That had a link back to Peter Strzok initially opening up on George Papadopoulos, and so that's why I'm particularly interested in Chairman Gowdy's comments about the George Papadopoulos nexus being a source of embarrassment for Brennan.
Just to drill this down, and I think Pete Hegseth, our guest last hour on Outnumbered, did a really good job of saying what's at stake here. If you take the names of the political parties out of this, why do Americans want to pay close attention now that we're getting close to seeing some of these documents declassified from the president?
Well, because it goes to the values of the country, no matter which party is in power. And I think that Pete really drew a fine point on the need for bipartisan reform. Unfortunately, this close to an election, it's hard for any politician to view these violations of our civil rights as anything other than for or against one side or the other. And I think that we've got to look more about, you know, in the future, when either party is in power, do we really want someone to be able to use their political dirt as a basis to go get a warrant to spy on their opponents? That should trouble all of us. That's why we need to turn all the cards face up and then hopefully have bipartisan reform.
You know, I know this is a little outside the scope of what we're talking about now, but I feel like I want to ask you this question because the president making the decision now, the IG, the Inspector General will sign off on redactions just like other agencies did yesterday because the documents have been out for a day or two. Do you think, given all that is about to come out with this and what we know, that it's a good idea for the president to continue this negotiation to actually sit down with Robert Mueller? Because I think that things are connected in the sense of just information in the investigation.
Any attorney that advises Donald Trump to sit down with Robert Mueller needs to make sure that they've got their malpractice policy very handy. I think it is a perjury trap. I think if you just look at the bias on the Mueller team, these are not people in search of the truth. They are people in search of an impeachment charge. And I think the president needs to treat this for what it is, an unfair attempt to erode the legitimacy of his presidency built on a rotten foundation. When you really go back to it, all dirt from the Democratic Party and the Clinton campaign.
Well, it goes back to these
I think
documents.
It really shows the nature
From what
of
you're
it.
saying.
Yeah, it does.
It's interesting.
It does. But I mean, if the president just remembers something incorrectly, or if there's someone who contradicts the president, then we go off on some unproductive perjury journey. When I want the president focused on our national defense, our trade deals, our economy, cutting taxes. You know, I mean, that's what impacts the kitchen table on Main Street in America, not all this craziness.
Congressman Gates, the great state of Florida, we will bring you back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harris.